Good morning, friends. Welcome to Ecoholics YouTube channel. Friends, my name is Avinash Agarwal, and in this video, I'll be discussing with you current affairs for 28th May 2024. There are three important topics that I want to discuss with you. First topic is going to be an evaluation of a very important flagship scheme of Government of India. It is about housing scheme, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So in our previous discussions, we have spoken about three flagship schemes: Manrega, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, as well as the Har Ghar Jal Yojana. And in this lecture, we will be talking about the Awas Yojana, right? So four most important flagship schemes of Government of India have been covered after this discussion. Second article is going to talk about skill development, keeping in mind those workers who are going overseas for their employment. So what is the government planning for them? So this kind of an article, it provides you inputs, 1 or 2 points that you can use for adding value to your answers. So let's say that you're talking about employment or skill development, or let's say that you're talking about making sure that human resource or demographic dividend in India is actually getting utilized, is actually getting generated. So when you're talking about such topics, so these kinds of articles, they are in a position to provide you some kind of inputs which you can use to add value to your answers. So that is the very basic simple idea that you need to keep in mind, that not every article is going to be a standalone answer in itself. Some articles can work as inputs for your answers in a very good way. The third article that I will discuss with you in today's lecture, that is about highway building in India. From an infrastructure development point of view, we want to understand why there is a slackening in the pace of highway building in India. So these are the three articles that I will be discussing with you. Regarding how you should use the content that I am providing over here, typically, if you're appearing for, let us say, a civil services examination, then in GS3 as well as in economics optional paper 2, all the content that I am providing to you can be used as examples, case studies, for statistics, for value added content, as well as for tackling questions which are directly getting inspired from current affairs. If you are appearing for, let's say, Indian Economic Service, then the entire Indian economics paper can be value added through the content that we are providing over here. If you are appearing for the RBI examinations, again, wherever there is an Indian economic component, like for instance in RBI grade B, there is a component called economics and social issues. So all the discussion that we are having over here will be directly relevant over there. Apart from that, typically in every examination that you appear for, there is an essay writing component, and typically in an essay writing component, out of whatever 4, 6, 8 options that they give you for the topics, one topic is definitely pertaining to economics. So the discussion that we have over here can have impact upon your preparation in multiple different ways. I'm discussing this because in yesterday's lecture, there was a comment left by a student that please guide us as to where we are supposed to use it or how we are supposed to use it. One general idea that I want to give to you is that please make sure that whichever examination that you are preparing for, whether it is IAS, IES, RBI, or any other examination, please make sure that your syllabus is there in your memory. It should be internalized. You should know your syllabus word by word, so that tomorrow if there is, let us say, a word such as infrastructure mentioned in your syllabus, and I'm talking about infrastructure from, let us say, a social development point of view and economic development point of view that I'll be doing today. So you should yourself be able to understand that, okay, this discussion that is happening over here is relevant for me because in my syllabus, this particular topic has been mentioned, and in the previous year questions, this particular question has been asked. So that is a level of homework that you have to do for yourself, for your preparation, for your examination, so that you are immediately able to make a linkage between what we are discussing in important economics current affairs on a daily basis back to your examination, back to your syllabus. Keep that in mind. Let us start. If there is any question, please ask. Okay. So the idea is that a lot of welfareist approaches have been taken by a variety of governments. So there is right to education in India, there is right to information in India, there is a Manrega scheme in India, there is a right to food in India. So a lot of welfareist schemes have been taken. Now what we have done is that the Narendra Modi government, they have taken this welfareist schemes in a different direction. So they have tried to, let us say, provide for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, for women, and so on and so forth, right? So their approach is best reflected in these kinds of schemes such as the rural housing scheme. So your Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was launched in 2016, and kind of there was something called as an Indira Awas Yojana that had been in existence for a couple of decades before 2016. So this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is basically a repackaged, expanded, energized version of Indira Awas Yojana, right? And 60% of the national targets for building pakka houses in rural areas, okay, so those 60% of those houses were to be built for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe households. So you can see that there is a serious earmarking of funds for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Why that is something that you need to understand. Now if you go to any village area, right, and you do a survey, so you will realize that those who are staying on the outskirts, in the kacha houses, in some of the most dilapidated dwellings, those are typically guys from scheduled caste, scheduled tribe kind of a background, right, who have been marginalized, who have been discriminated against, who have been kept deliberately kept at a very weak socio-economic footing. So to make sure that those are the ones who are getting the benefit, because they are the ones who actually need the benefit, 60% of the targets have been kept for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe households within Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin. That is very important thing to note, right? So 11.4 million such households have been built, right? 22% of India's 53 million rural households, rural SC/ST households, right? So you can see that significant amount of deployment of funds has actually happened towards this particular communities, right? So if there are 53 million of their total households, 11.4 have been built using the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin funds, right? Women, they jointly or individually own nearly 72% of the houses that have been built under the scheme, right? This is again fantastic, because if you are able to create assets in the name of women, then that significantly helps in terms of women empowerment in a variety of different ways, okay? And this is the basic idea that everybody is hoping in at least the ruling government dispensation that these labharthis, those who have benefited from these schemes, will be rewarding the government in the polls, not talking about elections moving ahead, right? So scheme was backloaded, right? 25.3 million houses that were sanctioned, 22 million or about 68%, right, of them during FY 2022, and the pace slowed down in FY 23-24, right? So you see that a lot of work has happened in the recent 2 years, FY 2022, right? Financial assistance that is being provided is of 1.2 lakh in the plain areas and 1.3 lakh in hilly areas, right? This is the kind of detail that typically gets asked in an examination, where there are a lot of objective questions getting asked, that what was the funding, when was the scheme launched, what is the objective of the scheme, what is the level of let's say allocation of funds towards scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So these kinds of very minute and very granular facts get questioned many a times, right? It depends whether your exam is asking these kinds of things or not, right? So make sure that if you are noting it down, if your exam is asking these things. If your exam is not asking these things, then you don't need to note down these granular details of 1.2 lakhs and 1.3 lakhs, right? Onus of construction is on the beneficiary himself or herself, right? They get 95% days of unskilled labor wages, right? For the construction, they get a loan amount up to 70,000 from financial institutions to aid the construction, right? We had aimed to build around 29.5 million pakka houses by March of 2022, right? Now this deadline has not been met, so we have kind of pushed this deadline ahead. It's a centrally sponsored scheme in the sense that both the union and the state governments are putting in funds. So when we talk about your states which are not in northeast, or states which are not Himalayan states, right? So on the mainland, the ratio is 60:40. So far as hilly states and Himalayan states are concerned, the ratio is 90:10. 2.5 trillion rupees has been released by the center for this period that we are talking about. 23.7% of the total expenditure of Ministry of Rural Development is going towards this scheme, right? So when I say that a scheme is a flagship scheme, students ask that, sir, how do you know that this is a flagship scheme? How do we know that this is a flagship scheme? You look at the ministry budgets, and within the ministry budgets, look at the schemes which are taking away top percentages. Like let's say that which is the largest scheme that is being run by that ministry, or the second largest scheme, or the third largest schemes. Those are the 2-3 important schemes that you all should be aware of. You all should be able to cite in your papers, and you all should have an understanding of, because you are liable to be asked questions based on those schemes. As is the case in most of the things that we do, unfortunately, there are quality gaps. Numbers may have taken care of themselves, but quality is not up to the mark, right? So houses have to be built within 12 months from the date of sanction, right? So the idea is that 193 days to do so in the past 3 fiscal years. So it took about a year on an average to clear administrative, financial, and actual construction, right? Recently it has taken a lot less time, 193 days, right? If you look at the average construction time, that has come down from 242 days to 150 days, right? Now ideally we should look at this as a choice, as something that we should be happy about. We should be able to be say that this is an achievement, that we are able to reduce the turnaround time. Maybe there is an improvement in technology, improvement in our processes, improvement in the material of construction, and so on, because of which the time is coming down, right? But there are apparently serious concerns regarding quality of houses that are being built. So there was a parliamentary panel that did a performance review. Report was tabled in March 2023, and they said that there is a lack of monitoring of quality at a variety of stages of construction, right? So you should, whenever you are criticizing the government or critiquing the government, right, please use authentic sources to critique the government. Like for instance, parliamentary panel report published in March 2023 raised serious quality concerns around this scheme. Looks good, sounds good, feels good, doesn't feel that it is your opinion, doesn't seem that it is your bias, that you are criticizing the government for the sake of it. So always try to cite where your critique is coming from, right? That will always be helpful for you in terms of gaining the trust of the examiner. Apart from that, government said that the geotagged photographs, they were getting captured at different stages of construction for review of quality. If you look at the state-wise implementation, you will obviously get a mixed picture, right? So states such as Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, right? So they have managed to meet the targets, and your northeastern states, they have been lagging behind. We have seen a similar story in yesterday's discussion as well. So when we were talking about Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, we saw that there were states that were quite behind when it came to meeting the targets of the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana phase 3 scheme, right? Same is the case over here. Why am I highlighting similarities? Because once you start developing a basic sense, a basic understanding of what typically happens in India, that can be kind of extrapolated over a variety of different areas without you having complete knowledge about those areas. Like for instance, quality issues, like for instance, delays, right? Like for instance, I don't know, differentiation among states in terms of implementation capacities and so on, right? So these are standard issues that you will see across a variety of schemes, across a variety of projects, and this is something that you should be able to second guess going ahead, right? Meghalaya, Manipur, Nagaland, they have achieved just around 25% of the targets. What is the way ahead, right? So government wants to achieve 100% saturation of its welfare scheme. Now please understand this word saturation. This is very important, especially in the last 2-3 years. It is very important. So what did the government realize during COVID-19 pandemic and beyond? That we have launched a plethora of schemes, especially for those who are socially and economically on a weaker footing, right? But we are not able to take our schemes to them. Why not? Why is this happening, right? So when they did this analysis, so they came to a conclusion that, boss, by Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed, do whatever has to be done, but make sure that all the Labharatis, all the beneficiaries, they are actually getting covered by the scheme. And hence they pushed the officials at the grassroots levels that make sure that people are covered. And that is what I mean by saturation. That let's say that if I have launched a scheme to give, let us say, 10,000 rupees loan to street vendors, then make sure that street vendors are getting it. Then banks were given targets. Now, whether this is a good tactic, bad tactic, whether it works in the long run or not, whether you should work in this kind of a mission mode or not, there can be debates around this. But there is massive emphasis on 100% saturation, which is again a very, very good thing, because without that kind of a push, targets don't meet themselves on their own, right? So the point is that, will this diminish over time? Will the appeal of these kinds of schemes diminish over time? Naturally, yes, right? Because once houses are built, then you don't rebuild them, right? You have other aspirations that you need to take care of. So fine, the government will have to look into it. Subsidize houses, cooking gas, bank accounts, right? Are these things good enough? right? So I don't want to get into the election part of it, so I'm just moving out of it completely, right? So you can see that the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin, it quickened after the 2019 elections were done, right? So for this particular election, this scheme may be serving as an important plank, which is naturally the case, right? Because every year when you go to the electorate asking for votes, you have to give your report card. You have to show something new that you have done, something different that you have done, something great that you have done. So you can see over here that the developments under this scheme probably will help the government right now, right? Again, over here you see the problem of funds released and houses constructed, right? So there isn't any uniformity over here much, right? You see funds were heavily loaded, released to the release of funds, it was high over here, it was high over here, right? So I mean, I'm not able to see a pattern over here so far, but that's fine and not a big deal, right? Construction timelines, they have also shrunk in the second term because we want to quicken the pace, right? So administrative process, financial transaction followed by construction. So the time is getting shrunk, and I honestly don't know whether how big a problem this is. I'm reasonably sure that quality can be an issue, but do we necessarily need to blame the shrunk timeline? I'm not so sure. It's in fact a good thing, because if you're building a small house in a rural area, typically how much time should it take, right? Should it take 5 months? That's the question I'm trying to answer to myself, and I feel that the answer comes out to be kind of no, right? So this is the beneficiary data. So this is the entire discussion, okay? And as you can see that darker the shade of red, better is the progress. Lighter is the shade, that means that you're lagging behind. So you can see that there are areas which are lagging behind in a big way, right? So okay, moving ahead to the next article. So looking for jobs abroad and government can help with skills. So let us understand from a skill development point of view and employment generation or an employment opportunities point of view how this article is making sense, right? So Indian professional workers are definitely going abroad, right? In developed countries, in West Asia, in a variety of different countries, and we want to upgrade their skills, right? So if you look at some numbers, okay, numbers are always very helpful. We are looking at 3.5 million plus job openings in 16 countries: US, Saudi, UAE, Canada, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman. Being able to mention just 4 or 5 countries is like good enough, right? That's a good starting point, right? So so these opportunities, they are estimated by your National Skill Development Corporation International, right? And they submitted a report to the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, right? So the idea being over here, India has this great opportunity that we can become the workforce supplier for the entire world, right? And as a matter of fact, there are registered agencies registered with the government of India who are a part of this value chain, who help or who facilitate students or who facilitate workers who are going abroad. So they are appropriately registered and monitored by government of India and its agencies, right? Now the title of this study is International Workforce Mobility, right? And we are basically trying to create a strategy to boost international mobility for Indian workers, which is very important because we will not be able to create all the jobs that our youth requires or people in India require. And therefore, if we are able to actually send our laborers abroad or workers abroad, that's a very good step, right? So you have to register yourself on an MSDE portal. Candidates will be scrutinized. Then skill upgradation training will be provided to them by NSDC, right? And thereafter deployment will be done for candidates abroad, right? So we'll be refining your skills so that you can meet certain standards and practices of the respective countries, right? So for instance, if you're an electrician or you're a path lab attendant, that is a pathology lab attendant, right? So depending upon which country we are targeting or you are targeting, right? Accordingly, we need to treat you, or we need to give you the kind of skill treatment in terms of being able to be a path lab attendant in that country, right? So the point is that these numbers, they are slightly lower than our expectations. What NR Bhanumurthy is saying. NR Bhanumurthy is a very respected voice in this particular space, right? So Indians, they have become highly sought after in many countries because of the kind of skills that they bring to the table, because of the kind of attitude that they bring to the table. So whether it is US or whether it is UK or whether it is in Australia, so you will see that Indians are doing some of the most high skilled, most rewarding jobs, right? So these are certain standard projections Pranab Sen is saying, right? And there is always a relationship between the growth rate and employment growth, right? And apart from that, there is a significant demand for human workforce, particularly in healthcare, in manufacturing, in IT sector, in a variety of different countries. And if you are able to tap into that, then that is fantastic. When we talk about Gulf countries, right? So these kinds of jobs are going to open up. You don't need to be able to mention all of them when you're talking about it. Just a couple of pointers out of this article, that would be more than sufficient, right? So similarly, they have identified the kind of jobs that will be opening up in these countries, right? 1 million each is expected in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, right? So you can try to mention these important countries over here when you're talking about, let's say, employment, or when you're talking about, let's say, skill development in your answers. Then these are the kind of countries that you would like to mention, right? So yeah, that's about it. So what would be the most important thing that you'd want to pick up out of this? Just the names of these 4-5 countries, names of these 3-4 sectors, and names of these 2-3 organizations, right? That International Workforce Mobility is a report which was created by National Skill Development Corporation International, which has been submitted to the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, which is basically guiding us in the sense that how we are supposed to, let's say, train these workers who are likely to go abroad and deploy them abroad. That's about it, right? So you get a strong point, right? And nothing more than that is honestly required out of this article, right? Now I want to discuss about highway building in India. So these topics, these articles that I'm discussing today, as you can see, that they are not very difficult to understand. Fairly straightforward, commonsensical stuff, and not always everything needs to be difficult, which is absolutely fine. But it needs to be value adding, it needs to be rich, right? So what is the pace of highway building, right? So let's put some numbers. So Nitin Gadkari and BJP are rightly proud of the highway building pace in India, and these numbers are, you know, a testament to the work that was done under their leadership, especially in this particular context, right? So it was 12 kilometers per day and it came to 30 kilometers per day, right? Then it was around 28 kilometers per day, then it hit the 37 kilometers per day, right? And we constructed nearly 13,500 kilometers worth of highways in 2021, right? Thereafter we have come down to around 34 kilometers, right? So a decent enough speed of highway building from, let's say, an Indian economy standpoint. So our national network of highways, it has increased 60% from around 91,000 kilometers to around 146,000 kilometers in 2023, right? And the length of 4 lanes and above rising 2.5 times. We want mega highways, bigger highways, wider highways, longer highways, etc., right? So how is this next year likely to be, right? So you know, we had 12,375 kilometers of highway that was awarded in the previous fiscal, right? And that number came down to just 8,500 in FY24, right? So the idea is that if, let's say, in FY24 you have awarded certain projects, right, then those projects will get executed in 25. Okay, so 24 was a good year because in 23 we were able to award a lot of projects, right? That's why 24 was a very spectacular year, FY24. Now in FY24 we haven't awarded that many projects, so FY24-25 is going to be a little slack. So that's, I guess, fine, because election year, etc., kind of calculation, I don't know, maybe. So going ahead again, the pace will probably pick up, right? What's behind the slowdown, right? So there are delays in approving project costs, right? There is a rise in raw material cost. There is a rise in land prices, right? So there are delays in the execution of projects that were awarded under the HAM model, right? What is HAM? That is hybrid annuity model, right? So these are the basic reasons, right? And third of these highways, they are facing delays of up to 6 months, right? And has the government allocation fallen, right? So the idea is that the accelerated pace of construction that is because of the government support. Typically, you want to have public-private partnership, but the public-private partnership model has not necessarily taken off in India in all the sectors, right? Private sector needs to be able to see a proper return on investment in a timely manner before they start committing their funds to these kinds of projects. And maybe based on the past experiences, not a lot of people are enthused keeping their funds parked in this particular sector, right? So if you see the budgetary allocation, there has been a significant increase from 32,000 crores to 1.41 trillion in FY23, right? And this went up to 1.67 trillion, and today it is at 1.68 trillion, right? So obviously, National Highway Authority of India is, using up a bulk of this expenditure, right? And of course, there is a debt overhang upon National Highway Authority of India, right? So they are the ones who are building most of the wider highways, and they borrow heavily to do the same, right? And they hope to generate tolls and then repay this kind of a debt, or they hope to receive money from government through budgetary allocation and then settle this debt, right? So if you see the debt overhang of NHAI, it has gone up to 3.5 trillion rupees. So repayment will peak by FY28. Thereafter, it will taper down, and thereafter NHAI will become debt free by 2040. See, once the required length and breadth of highways have been built, then you just need to maintain them, right? Then you just need to maintain them, and you will consistently keep earning tolls out of those highways. So eventually NHAI will be a debt-free organization, right? So NHAI has been shifting from engineering, procurement and construction projects, where the highway builder bears the full debt burden, to a hybrid annuity model where the private investor bears 60% of the project cost. So also because of this, you will see that there will be a realignment in the debt overhang of NHAI, right? So this is the pace of highway construction, number of kilometers per day, right? And in the light blue is project awarded, in the dark blue is the project completed. So you can see that there is a significant decline in the number of projects awarded over here, right? So let's see what happens going ahead, right, is what we are wanting to discuss. So yeah, these were my articles today. Not very difficult, not very challenging, and honestly, things that don't challenge me don't excite me. So I wasn't really excited about this, but it's okay. We have to get value added content for you in a variety of different spheres, whether it challenges us or not, right? So that was it for today. If there is any questions that you all want to ask, or any questions that you all have, please feel free to ask. Charulata, good morning. Nikhil, hi. Lalita, good morning. And everybody else, good morning to all of you guys too. So if there is anything that you would like to ask, please feel free to connect with us. As always, this content will be available through the Ecoholics app. You just need to download it and do a basic quick free registration. Go to the study materials section and you will be able to download the PDF from the current affairs document. So we have started this exercise on 1st May 2024. We are nearing about a month of doing this exercise almost on a daily basis. Do share your feedbacks, your reviews, what you feel about the same. An important change that I have done in my approach is that I have restricted the content to 30 minutes, right? It's exactly around mostly around 27-28 minutes, definitely within a 30 plus minus 5 minutes mark that I have restricted these lectures to, respecting your own timelines and commitments, right? That's the basic idea. Another thing that we are planning to do is that just to be able to summarize everything for you, maybe help you revise, maybe expand the horizons of our coverage. I'm thinking that I'll pick up my current affairs magazine, that is Ecoholics Current Affairs magazine, and I'll probably discuss that with you, because if there are important, and I'm sure there are many important articles in that Ecoholics magazine, right, and if I can cover that for you, then that kind of takes that much load away from your shoulders, right? Because I believe that once the discussion is done over here, then a lot of things become easier for you guys going ahead in terms of retaining, understanding, and so on. So these are some of the thoughts that I'm working with, right? Additionally, I also have this thought eventually of integrating some kind of question answer kind of an approach in this discussion, that probably just discuss how a particular question needs to be tackled, what are the kind of inputs that need to be done in that question, right? So that kind of an approach building exercise is something that I'm planning to do, integrate into these lectures towards the fag end of these lectures. So let's see how we can work around all these ideas that I keep having. But for the time being, let's continue with this particular lecture series the way we are doing it. That's my sense about it. Do share what you think about the same. Your inputs are always very valuable for us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. I'll meet you tomorrow again, same time. Around 7:30 to 7:35, I start the lecture, right? Try to be as close to 7:30 as possible, right? So do spare me for being a little off the mark all the time in that sense. So thank you so much and see you tomorrow, and bye bye. Take care. Jai Hind to all of you guys. Thank you.